Good morning. Today is Tuesday, it's February the 28th. We're here for our regular monthly committee. We're going to stand for a prayer and then the pledge of allegiance. Brother Glenn.
Father, we thank you for this day, and again, we know every blessing comes from you. We ask you to grace this meeting with your presence, Lord, and that you would rule in our minds and our thoughts and our speech. Lord, we give you credit for all these things because we know every good and perfect thing coming from above. We thank you again and believe you for these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, call the roll, please.
Mayor Kathy?
Here.
Mr. Smith?
Here.
Mr. Pollak?
Here.
Mr. Wolf?
Here.
Mr. Wells?
Here.
Thank you. All right, we're going to move right to our agenda. Citizens' comments is first up this morning. Those are protocol, come on.
Alex Hogan, I live on 7th Street. Just curiosity, they've done a great job, most of the people here clearing their lots and whatever. But the question here on 98th and 27th, that Casa, whatever they're building, it's the Dos Casa del Bar. It looked like it used to be in a restaurant or something. That's kind of an eyesore. And I was just wondering what's being done about that. Are you familiar with what I'm talking about?
Yeah, you're talking about the old
Right there on the
Grove, you're talking
corner.
about the old Grove building. Yeah, those folks have been contacted.
Yeah, 4 years later? Okay, just asking, just asking.
They've been doing a little work here and there.
Yeah,
They'll just,
very here and very there.
Rock Creek, Colorado, Mayor, Council. Three of you sitting up here know I've been here for 3 years after the hurricane, every meeting complaining about getting rid of the USS Minnow, the old Vulcan Station trailer, and it took 3 years to do that. How long, Mike was last decade, we're a third of the way into this decade, how long are blue tarps going to be on homes, plywood over windows? And it ain't insurance, it ain't lack of money, it all has one thing in common. I know some of these people, it ain't money, it ain't nothing. They just don't live here, they don't care. It's not in their eyes. Isn't there a time limit? You got your LDR, it says right in there, nuisance. You got a nuisance ordinance in there. You can fit that into anything. I mean, come on. It's been these many years. When is this going to come to an end? Thank you.
Citizens' comment, floor's open.
George Gill, live at 124th Street. I'm going to resurface an issue that resulted in a council vote back in September 13th of last year. And in my opinion, the vote involved a real simple issue. The issue had been raised by many citizens that they'd like you all to change your meeting time of the regularly scheduled council meetings from 9 in the morning till the evening time. 6 o'clock in the evening was recommended. The citizens supporting that said that the reason for that change was because they worked. They worked either 8 to 5 or 9 to 6 or whatever. They couldn't make these meetings. They didn't have an opportunity to make these meetings. Not that they would attend every meeting, but they at least wanted the opportunity. You all discussed it at the table. Mr. Mayor, you countered by saying that 3 people in your neighborhood had asked you to keep the meetings at 9 o'clock. You went on to say that Mexico Beach was not an anomaly, that all the other folks have their meetings in the morning at 9 o'clock. Now, I can't challenge the fact that maybe 3 people in your neighborhood said that they'd like you to keep the meetings, but I don't know where you got the anomaly from, because on my own, I polled 27 towns and cities in the general area of Mexico Beach. Panama City, the city proper, has their meetings at 8 o'clock in the morning. Port St. Joe has their meetings at 12 noon. Everybody else, as far as you can go west, as far as you can go east, and as far as you want to go north, including places like Bonifay, Mariana, Tallahassee, all have their meetings in the evenings. Now, after you stated that we were an anomaly, you all took a vote, and here's my problem. The vote was taken, and I'm assuming that as you discuss these things, each of the council members listens to the other, and that provides a real opportunity to sway your vote. If somebody says, look, everybody does it, then your vote might go, well, gee, you know, everybody does it, I'm going to vote to keep it at 9 o'clock. So it's misinformation that was based, that vote was based on. The vote was favored to keep it at 9 o'clock, 3-2. Mr. Wolf, Mr. Well had a great compromise idea, didn't fly. So here's what I'm saying. Because that vote was based on misinformation, we are not an anomaly, according to the mayor, but yet everybody else has their meetings, with the exception of 2 people around us, have their meetings in the evening. So my opinion is, yeah, we are an anomaly. We need to change our meeting time so all of these working people have an opportunity to participate in these meetings. I think you need a
Lord, your
revote.
time's running short.
I'm done. I think you ought to revote on that issue.
George, I've been, well, citizens, I've been talking around. I'm a member of the Bay County League of Cities. Panama City Beach has changed theirs to 1 in the morning and 1 in the evening.
Excellent.
So, and a lot of them doing different things. So it is something to look at.
Okay, thank you, Bobby.
Others? Any other citizens' comments? Okay. We'll move to the consent agenda. We have one item, minutes from February 14th. If there's no corrections or additions, is there a motion to approve by consent?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any opposition? Okay, motion carries 5-0. Under, moving to our regular agenda, we have financial report and action report.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor, thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
On the phone, we have our city accountant, Debbie. She has a financial report to discuss with everybody.
Good morning, Debbie.
Okay, does everybody have a copy of the report? We can start with the first page is just a summary of the normal, what the report consists of. This is through January 2023 in the budget, and the cash through December. On the second page for revenues, you can see we're in the general fund ad valorem taxes. We only have 17% left, which is normal. We're at the slowdown. We collect the majority of it in the first quarter of the budget year, and then it trickles down after that. The remaining portion of the non-ad valorem revenue, we're a little ahead, and that's because, then we'll talk about that budget revision later on. That's because we've exceeded some of the revenues, like building permits, interest, and code enforcement violations, and then we also had a refund of prior year money that for fiscal year 2020. But as far as the water, sanitation, and sewer fund, we're pretty much on track with the revenues. We collected a little bit extra in the water fund, and then just the breakdown below of the types of revenue we've collected. Any questions about the revenues?
Are any of the revenues, I know this is back, we're gonna talk about this later, which is the amendment, but are any of those revenues showing up in these revenues?
Yes, yep, and that's why that 48% in that general fund non-ad valorem revenue is so, is lower, is because we've over-collected for this time, and it's the contributing factor for those revenues.
So it's in fact, all the numbers are showing in here now?
Yes,
The 673,000.
except for the building permits and the interest, those are, I projected those over the next, for the remaining portion. But the 415,000, a portion of the interest and a portion of the building permits are contributing for that 48%.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next page on the expenditures. We're right around 67% or above on our expenditure budget, which is where we should be. The reason the sewer and water fund are a little bit higher is because the debt payments for the water and the sewer will be logged. We haven't logged those in the system yet, and so that's why we're a little ahead, because once we log those debt payments, it'll drop down into the normal range. Any questions about the expenditures?
When do we pay those? What is the payment time frame on the water and sewer debt?
July and the 1st of February. So next month it'll be reported. You'll see that on the debt for the water.
Right, okay.
And then September is for the sewer.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to the next, which is the cash. You can see the net cash accounts and then the designated fund accounts. That 415,000 we mentioned earlier in cash has been received, so it's in part of this balance. Is there any questions about any of the cash balances or cash in general?
No?
Okay.
Good enough.
All right, moving on to that last page. Consistent tasks that are ongoing. Auditors are going to be doing their presentation shortly for the fiscal 21 audit. We're ramping up for the fiscal 22 audit, which will begin in a month or two, and then we should be caught up on our normal schedule of audits. The last council meeting, we discussed investments, and after looking at the Centennial Wells Fargo and the Florida League of Cities, the Centennial Bank had the best rates as far as the short term, and it was that less than half a point for long term. So it's my recommendation we go with the Centennial Bank because they're local, and I think we'll actually get a little bit extra interest just because we're over a point higher on the short term investments.
So Centennial Bank increased the percentage for us then?
Yeah, they went up to the 4.8, and then for the 12 month, and then 4.75, I believe, on the, I have to get my numbers, but which is almost 2 points above what Wells Fargo was.
I don't see that as a good partner. If you're investing $3 million and you tell them you want a CD for it, they give you a number, you go back to them, tell them that number is low, and all of a sudden they because you have another bank that's going to raise it, all of a sudden they do. I think it's something we ought to keep an eye on, personally.
Yeah, it's by a half a point. I think it was 4.75 is what their original, and then they came back with 4.8.
My point is they should have gave us their best at the first.
Right. I understand. So, that's just where we are with the investments. The last council meeting, it was discussed if to do the research and then make the recommendation. So, after talking to Doug, the Centennial Bank was what the recommendation was. So.
And they did keep
We
the
have-
no penalty clause, right?
Yeah. And well, that's something that, Doug, I don't know if Hiram confirmed that or not as far as early liquidation.
He did. If we had an emergency situation we had to get out of, they would not be costing us those points.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
Good. When will we make those decisions on the funds that we're going to, is that something y'all have already?
We have not moved forward. We wanted to make sure we told you an update where we stood today, in case there was any changes.
That's,
It's in motion, but nothing's been signed off on yet.
all right, so is that, y'all gonna get that going?
Immediately after this, yes.
All right, any questions for Debbie? Debbie, you have anything else?
No, but I'll be hanging on the line because of the auto presentation and the
okay.
budget amendments, so.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, Atkins report?
Yes, sir. We have Ryan here with Atkins doing his presentation this morning.
Hey everybody,
Good morning.
how's it going? Just wanted to give, I think I didn't get to give a January update, so some of this, I guess the last time I gave an update was December, so want to give you guys an update on some things. One, we're still working through making all the payments on the phase 2 dredging. That's going really well. Everything on the state side, they've just been saying, hey, you guys have been golden on this so far. So we're over $5 million into reimbursement payouts so far on that, which is good. I think we still got about $1.5 million to get processed, and I don't see any issues going down the pipe on that. So that's good news. We are also hoping to get a Cat Z payment. That's for management costs of the entire disaster coming through before a lot of that goes towards having us here. But we should be getting a pretty big payment on that in the next month or two. I think close to $1 million. We're still kind of hashing out the last bits of it, but that'll be really good when that comes through. And also on the payment side, we've gotten our first sort of amendment, they call it an amendment to our 428 projects, working through. That has been a long journey, basically where we're trying to offset certain 428s where we were overruns with ones where we were underruns, use that money to flip over. There's a long process that we have to go through basically to get approval from FDEM and FEMA to get those payments to come out, and we've got the first one of those, or I guess sets of those projects moving through the queue, and we'll be actually, I think, the first community in Hurricane Michael, if we get one of those payments through, to receive one of those offset payments. So that's good news as well. Another thing I wanted to bring up was I mentioned, I think in December, that we were waiting. We'd gotten the award letter for the regional stormwater project, but we couldn't get anything going on that until we got the grant agreement squared away with FDEM. We did get that squared away now. Everything's signed and fully executed, so we can move forward on that. I'm currently working on developing, and I guess let me actually pause and just kind of explain how that project is going to work from like a big picture for you guys. So this is an HMGP project, a hazard mitigation grant program project. So it's through FEMA, but it's a different program than all the other public assistance programs that we've been doing so far. This one's aimed at essentially like resilience and trying to protect from flooding, that sort of thing, or from future flooding, I should say. So it's cool that we got that project, but it's also going to be a really big project. I think we were estimating originally that it's like in the $10 to $12 million range, and I think that was a couple years ago, so maybe higher than that now. But because it's such a big project and we didn't have an existing structure or anything there, this is a whole new thing. FEMA tends to phase those projects, so we'll get funding here to do what they call phase 1, which is basically design of the project. That's what they've now awarded us. So we need to have somebody basically go out, design, engineer this project, and then once we've done with that, we basically submit it back to FEMA and say, hey, we didn't have this project before, it didn't exist. This is our plan design for it. We need your approval. And when they go through and approve that, then they will issue basically the phase 2 set of funding to us, and that'll be for like the construction effort. So where we're at now is we need to get somebody on for design, and so I'm working on the RFQ to put out so that we can get somebody, an engineering team, to do the design on this project, because it's going to be a big one. We have to put it back out for RFQ, and then we'll be able to start proceeding. And this is not something that's going to happen, you know, in 3 months or anything like that. The design for something like this is probably going to take somewhere in the range of, like, I would guess 9 to 12 months, and then we'll still be on to, we have to do construction and all of that. But that's where we're at on this project, or on that project, and I just wanted to give you guys kind of a briefer on that, since we now have the funding grant agreement locked in, and we can actually start moving forward on it. So maybe I'll pause for a second on that. Any questions on the regional stormwater?
Yeah. How do we proceed when there's land purchases needed to proceed?
So here's how I see it, is that we need to get the design done before we can do any, like, I don't know if we know what land purchases we need to make at this point, because we haven't done any of the design related pieces of this. So, you know, we've got, as I think everybody knows, we've got one piece of the land that we definitely will need, that 80 acres on the east side of town. But I think you're referring to that we probably are going to need another location.
When you refer to the big project, I'm assuming that you're making reference to the same one that was identified right after the storm, that the Corps said they were going to put in $10 million, which comes from the 8th Street Canal, changing that water flow and going east to our 80 acres and then north to.
So, yes, but then also, I guess the second piece of this is, again, when we submitted this project, we were submitting basically, I don't want to call it a conceptual design because it's probably a little more than that, but there's not a set thing that we know we're going to do for this. So it could incorporate elements of that. It could incorporate land purchases to do, you know.
Well, that's what I'm confused when you say the design. What? Design the entire project, or design a piece of the project?
This is to design the entirety of the project.
That's what I thought.
So again, we don't know exactly what the entirety of the project is at this point, because
So we're going to put out an RFP.
Yep, to get an engineering firm to come in and say, hey, we've run the H&H, you know, here's our concept for how this is going to work. Like, if we do this, you know, the water levels will be able to help, you know, with your.
How much is that grant? How much?
So I think so this phase one, we have, I think it's right around $1 million. I can't remember if it's a little over or a little under, but yeah.
And it's designated for the design.
It's designated specifically for the design. We have to do that so that then, again, we can turn around to FEMA and say, here's what we've designed. Can you give us the okay on it so that we can start construction?
Okay. Go ahead. I mean.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Good stuff. So, that's all that. And then, I know Bobby has been asking about this. We're real close to our 90 million that I had set for as a goal for myself, in payouts, by March. We're at 89.5 million right now, and we've got the last payment going out, that we needed just to check the last box and get that reimbursement going. So I expect we'll get that here in the next maybe 2-3 weeks, and we'll hit 90 million at least. That last payment I was referring to was for the phase 2 dredging, but obviously I mentioned a couple other ways that we may be getting some additional funds, so I'm still extremely confident that we're going to hit that 90 million by the end of the month and probably exceed it by a little bit. So that's all good news as well. And I know I haven't, like I said, I missed the January presenting here on January, so if you guys have any questions about anything else that's going on, I wanted to open it up for you in case you have any.
Ryan, I think you're gonna have to address the pier, fire station
Okay.
updates. You can't, I mean, that.
Yeah, yeah.
And I don't mean, this isn't a black eye or, but I think you have to give a black eye a bad choice. It's, I don't wanna call them setbacks. but
Sure.
They're things that I think you need to let everybody know what's going on.
Definitely. So on the police fire, we are, I mean, we've been kind of in a holding pattern for a little while here, trying to work back and forth with FEMA on just squaring away the scope. And basically, we have gone back now, and I think we've got, you know, our FEMA folks that we're working with directly understanding what the root of the original issue was, which is basically that FEMA, when they were looking at the flood maps for the area where the existing station is, they weren't looking at the right flood elevations. So that was decreasing what our existing cost was for putting it back at the old site, essentially. So we still have to go to the FEMA CRC, which is like the engineering branch of FEMA, and get them to okay the higher amount that we're suggesting now for putting it back at the existing location. And why that's important is because the way this project is likely going to run is that we're going to get it costed at the old site for what it would take to put it back there. But then we're going to essentially do what's called a capped project or an alternate project. And whatever the dollar figure is over there, we'll use that money to relocate the facility to the new site over on the 25 acres out back. So all that to say, you know, we still haven't taken that step forward that I want to take step forward because we need the CRC, the FEMA's engineering branch, to give us the okay on those dollar figures. But the folks that we work with on a daily basis, I think, understand it and finally understand it, I guess I should say, and are going to support what we're asking for over there. Sorry, Adrian, we're getting ready to ask. Okay, sorry, I thought you had a question about that specifically. So all that to say, you know, I'm a realist. I won't try to, you know, fluff this for you or anything like that. We haven't made the type of progress in terms of like actually moving it forward that I want to make, and that I would feel then able to say, oh, good, we've made progress. But I do feel like that we've kind of turned a corner with the FEMA folks that we talk to on a regular basis, that they are now have gone from, we're not sure why you guys think that you should get this much money, to, oh, actually we're in support of you, but we have to still convince another group within FEMA. So, so that's where we're at on police fire. Happy to take any questions about anything specific on that.
You can't get specific because of who we're dealing with.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
I've been listening, I've been part of all that, and,
This has been a tough cookie,
yeah.
for sure.
All right, Peter.
So that's that, and then on the pier, we had to go through this whole thing because basically what happened a couple months ago was that we were getting into what's called FEMA EHP review, which is like their environmental historic preservation review, where they go to consult with other agencies to evaluate the project and make sure we're not violating any rules or regulations from those other agencies. So when we were in that review, one of the other agencies identified, I think it was Coastal, identified that when we had designed to put the restroom up on top of the pier, that we weren't allowed to do that because it was within the coastal construction control line. And we had to have quite a bit of back and forth with our design team, that they were saying, well, no, like we should be able to do this, and I won't get into the details, but eventually what happened was that we recognized that there was just a very unique space where the B zone, which is a different zone that FEMA identifies in terms of flood mapping, was not lining up with the coastal construction control line, which it normally does. And so it was basically creating this sort of anomaly location right at the pier where it turned out that these other agencies were correct, that we weren't able to put the restroom on top of the pier. So we had to go back and redesign, not the whole pier, but we had to redesign that piece of it so that we would have plans that we could submit to these agencies that they would approve of, where they were saying like, hey, okay, now you're not violating these rules and regs. So we did that, got those plans back over to FEMA, and then now they have turned, and I think this is just one of the, maybe I'd call it a little bit unfortunate, but like it's the way that this process plays out, is that now because we have submitted a new set of plans, this has to go back again to the CRC engineering branch for them to get approval on it, because we have a different set of plans that we're now submitting. So we're going back to CRC at this point to get them to give the okay. And I think we're going to have a meeting, as today, we have a meeting with the FEMA folks to talk about it, because they just want to make sure, again, within FEMA there's sort of different little groups within it, and we're trying to make sure everybody's on the same page about what we're doing now, and that it's not completely different, but it does have some differences from what was originally submitted, and a little bit of version control going on in there as well. And then we're kind of in an overall debate too with some of our FEMA folks that we are in direct contact with on the regular, have been suggesting that we may want to try to include some items in there that hadn't gotten included before. They don't have to do structurally with the pier, but there are things like fish cleaning stations, which they weren't giving us the full stations that we wanted originally. And our FEMA folks that we're talking to are saying, well, we may want to ask for that. We may be able to convince them that we can include these items while we're having to do this rescope. I will say, I've talked to Doug about this, and I don't want us to get bogged down in those additional items. Like, I want to keep the process moving forward. I don't think they're critical, and they're not a huge piece of the costing of this pier, but it's probably worthwhile to, as long as we're having to have CRC rescope anyway, to just at least have the conversation with them about it, so we can see if those kinds of things can get covered. So, again, I won't try to sugarcoat anything. I mean, we're still caught in the scope development piece of the pier with FEMA. And then I'll also add, outside of sort of the FEMA piece of this too, I know that Dave is, with BDI, is still working on trying to get the permit approved as well. So still some items to move forward on with that as well.
In saying all that, do we have any idea of time?
I don't. I mean, the honest answer is we talk about this one probably weekly at least, but it's a big project that has a lot of complication, because and we saw this as we went into EHP. I think I prefaced the EHP was going to be a long review, and something came up in it that we didn't anticipate, because we thought we had, and I say we, but I think the design team thought they had gotten it right, but that's how EHP is, especially when it comes to things out over open water. It's not going to be a fast or easy process, because there's so many regulations that are outside of even what FEMA is regulating to make a pier or anything like that comply with all of those rules from the different agencies.
Did the EA get settled?
So yeah, we're gonna do the EA. We haven't done, it hasn't been done yet, but
Are we doing it?
yeah, that's the plan.
We
Yeah.
confirmed with them that we're gonna do the environmental assessment
Yeah,
ourselves.
that's what we told FEMA, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we have a scope under which we're gonna follow?
Yeah, we have basically, the template for what
Yeah.
they want it to look like, and we're just gonna have them follow it to a T.
Okay. In sort of layman's terms, the biggest thing with the pier is that we thought we had the scope identified. And I say the word we thought we did, we've been told we did.
Yeah.
But I think what happens when you get that many agencies involved, I guess
Yeah, I mean, that's
somebody said, no, you don't quite have it this way, and that created going back to the CRC for another review, which is something we thought we had already done in sort of short terms.
correct.
But we're moving on and we're working on it. Thank you. Any questions for Ryan? Yes, sir.
I got a question.
Yes.
Yeah.
You say fish cleaning stations on the pier,
Yeah.
incorporated. I guess that all has to be plumbed off the pier somewhere, correct? You
Yeah.
can't dump fish guts in the water with people swimming around there. So if stuff has to be plumbed off, what is the regulation for an agency that you can't have a restroom that's plumbed off? I'm just curious.
So I don't, well, and I will say I'm not the expert since we're not technically doing any of the design on the pier. But I think from what I understood is that when they build those fish cleaning stations and dump the guts, what they're doing is they have to dump them down below the surface of the water. So they actually put them out there, but they aren't, they're going into the ocean, but they're not going onto the surface of the ocean. They're not like the equivalent of shutting it off, so.
I've been spearfishing in the ocean my entire life. That is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. I want to swim around the pier. So, I mean, that's, when they do the design, that can't happen. That's,
Point taken, and like I said, I don't know, I'm not the expert on pier design, so.
It's just a
I think I had to ask that.
All right, anybody else? Yes, sir.
This is kind of for Atkins and the council in general. Months after Hurricane Michael, I requested from the city manager's office, and Mr. Baber wasn't there at that time, I requested an operational recovery plan from Hurricane Michael. And I received a response in writing from the city manager stating that the city didn't have one, but that they had contracted, two-party contract with Atkins Consulting Firm out of Orlando to develop one. So I contacted Atkins directly, and sure enough, a couple months later, they sent me what they called a resiliency plan. Very well done, very nice. The contract was for $6 million, $2 million for 3 years. I guess my confusion and my question, you haven't said anything about a resiliency plan. I'm sure the $6 million has been long gone. Where does that fit into what you're talking about in the way of a greater than just conceptual design for what's going on?
That's, Ryan,
I mean, I can take a shot at it. There's a lot of.
that's a very broad question.
Yeah, I was gonna say, there's a lot of things we've looped in together there.
Okay, let me stop you and just try to make it more simple. What does the resiliency plan do? It's strategic, it's not operational, there's no measurable objectives, no measurable action steps, no person's named accountable, no time frames. It's a pretty document that gives a very nice overview of perhaps what Mexico Beach is going to look like in the future.
Yep, that's what it is, yeah.
But for $6 million, what is it doing for you?
Well, I'll say that for sure. That plan was a small piece of what our contract is set up to do. I think overall it was $70,000 or something in that range.
70 how many?
$70,000 to do that plan, something like that. I can't remember the actual number,
Okay.
but the $6 million is for all of the stuff that we've been running for all of the projects that we've done over probably 50 or 60 or 70 now, I'd say, projects throughout the course of the disaster.
So anywhere in the
recovery.
resiliency plan, and I apologize, I read it probably 2 years ago. Mr. Baber sent me a new copy of it just recently in a PDF file.
Okay.
I've not had a chance to read it yet. Is anywhere in that resiliency plan the conceptual designs that you're talking about now? Or
For
are
the-
they two separate?
For the conceptual designs for like the stormwater project, is that what you're asking?
Everything, I just
Yeah,
don't.
so the resilience plan, like, as a whole, and I wasn't part of the development of that personally, but the resilience plan as a whole is basically like, here's the ideas that we have of things that we can do in this community, right? So the regional stormwater is in there, but we don't have, and I would say again, the conceptual plan of saying like, hey, you know what would be good is if we put together a regional stormwater facility, that's in the plan. But again, like, we don't have a specific design where we said, hey, we're gonna run the water from point A to point B
Absolutely.
or whatever.
Fine.
That's what this next part of the grant
Okay,
is
so
for.
so,
All right, we're gonna move on, George. Thank you. We just, been here. All right. Anything else, Ryan?
yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yep. No problem.
All right, audit presentation, number 2.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We have Ben Clark, CPA with James Moore Auditing here. We have the PowerPoint on the screen as well, and Mr. Moore can take it from here, sir.
All right, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Hope you're doing all right. My name is
Yes, sir.
Ben Clark, and I'm with James Moore and Company, so we're the CPA firm tasked with doing your annual audit. We've been here a few times now, and I think this is the good news, that we are now caught up. So you guys are, you can check that box, you're now caught up on your audits, and so we do have the 2022 audit scheduled for May, so we'll probably be back here sometime in the summer to kind of present that one, and that one's due on June 30th. So you are officially caught up as far as that goes. This is the 2021 fiscal year audit, so we'll talk about that. Talk about that now. So again, my name is Ben Clark. I'm a James Moore. I'm a CPA. I'm a senior manager, and I oversee this engagement and a number of other of our governmental engagements with the firm. So this report, this is going to list here for you all the different kinds of reports, kind of listed within the overall audit. And so the first one there is what we call our independent auditor's report. So that's the one you're kind of familiar with that has, you know, whether the statements are materially correct or not. As far as that report goes, it is the same kind of opinion as last year. It is a qualified opinion, so that what that means is there's some material in there that is maybe not up to gap is what we call it, and that is with regard to OPEB. So if you think back, OPEB is the liability that would have to be put in there. It has to do with health insurance subsidies and things like that. To get that liability in the books, you would have to hire an actuary and kind of spend money in that area, and the city's determined they don't, you know, it's probably not in the best interest right now to do all that and hire an actuary just for the purposes of getting the number in the report, if that makes any sense. But if you ever wanted to go in that direction, we can talk about that. But otherwise, we are comfortable with that decision as well. But it just does require us to put kind of that qualification in the report as far as that goes. Other than that, the numbers in the report are materially correct as far as we're concerned, so you can rely on them for any decision-making purposes. They should be pretty consistent with some of the things that you've seen in the reports that Debbie kind of gives you each month and things like that. And so nothing of concern there. The next few items listed there's a schedule of findings and question cost. So that is basically a summary of all the kind of comments and things that you would probably need to know, and that is on pages 46 and to 48 of the overall, the big set of statements that you guys were given. And the next couple of reports are pretty important. So the first one is what we call your single audit report. So that's where we have to go and look at some of the large grants that you guys spent money on during that fiscal year, and we have to audit some of the bigger ones. And so the ones we audited for fiscal year 21 were, of course, FEMA. There was some emergency watershed money that's also a federal grant, and 2 state grants, which were a DEO housing grant, and then a Hurricane Michael Office of the Governor grant there too. When we looked at all those grants, we looked at all the compliance findings in them, all those kinds of things. We did not have any findings or any areas of concern, material weaknesses, anything like that with regard to our single audit. So that's good news there, and nothing that we found we need that is of concern. The next report that is in the statements that you have, it's on pages 51 and 2. That's going to have very similar comments to the prior year as far as, we do call them material weaknesses, but they all are repeat comments, right? So you got to think this is back in fiscal year 21, so we're still kind of in the midst of recovery and all these kinds of things, personnel changes, all those sorts of things. So a lot of these comments were probably fixed towards the end or already pretty close to fixed. But because they were present sometime during that fiscal year, we still had to make a comment about it in the overall audit. But those areas were segregation of duties, where you have one person doing too many things, namely like reviewing journal entries and some things with like, and in the payroll system, we felt like there needs to be a little more segregation in those areas. some areas where we did have to make a number of accounting adjustments to get the books up to a full accrual basis, which probably is to be expected with all the kind of construction and hurricane activities and FEMA dollars and all these sorts of things. There's very specific ways to do accounting for those in those areas. So we worked with Debbie on those areas, and so she's pretty comfortable with all those. And I think the books, as of right now, are kind of getting to the place where we're pretty much in full control of that. But we kind of work with her on an ongoing basis, as needed, as questions arise about how to take care of something. So hopefully those will get less and less over time. The last area was just bank recs. During fiscal year 21, there were still bank recs were still a little untimely, but towards the end, I think we were fully caught up. So it's again one of those areas where, because it was present during the year, we still have to make a comment about it. But I think towards the end of the year, or by the end of the year, that was already kind of resolved, so to speak. So nothing of concern there, but we just want to point that out to you. The other things are that we do have a management letter that's required by the Florida Auditor General. That's the Chapter 10550. Thinking back to, there's 5 comments, recommendations, whatever you like to call them, in that report. And then we still do have what we call the deteriorating financial condition, which sounds a little serious. But basically, because of the way in which the hurricane kind of finances, if you want to call it that, were handled at that time with regard to essentially vendor invoices, just kind of paying as you kind of get reimbursements in, and kind of throwing that out of whack a little bit. Because of how that was all handled, we basically have a deteriorating financial condition because of the way the Auditor General looks at things with regard to their calculations and things like that. So nothing.
I think that's a good word.
Yeah. So, yes.
Deteriorating.
It is. Yeah. So basically, when it kind of throws all those situations there, and we have to do calculations and all these sorts of things, it kind of makes those conditions arise. So we have to kind of put that in there. But that's the same kind of thing you guys have had for the last couple of years. So that you should be pretty familiar with that. The other 5 recommendations are, I'll just list them off, somewhat quickly, but we can go into detail with any of them if you want to. And I think Debbie is aware of all of these. We did have a little bit of an expended general fund as far as the budget goes. So that's one where, now that you're kind of out of that, kind of transition, so to speak, you kind of keep track of that better. And basically, the general fund budget needs to be kind of trued up. The actual expenditures are kind of looked at probably within 60 days after year end or so, to make sure that the general fund budget is not overexpended according to actual expenditures. There also was never a disaster recovery fund budget, so that's one where that probably definitely needs to be developed, if it hasn't already been already, and then that's kind of voted on by the council as well, so that was kind of another one. We had another comment for a recommendation for utility deposits, because there's no current practice of requiring your utility deposit when a customer kind of sets up an account, so that was kind of in there as well. There's another state statute about building permit funds and how much balance you can carry forward on those and tracking those. So there's a recommendation in the financials about that and tracking those building permit funds. With regard to the debt sinking fund, I think that was a little bit underfunded at one point, so just making sure that the debt sinking fund is kind of paid on time, that we were paying money into the debt sinking fund. Debt payments were getting made, so it's not like we were not making debt. It's just that statutory kind of compliance element where you're paying money into the debt sinking fund, and then it's kind of going out to the respective debt holders. And then the last one is a new one. We have this in all of our cities pretty much across James Moore. It's more of a recommendation. The state did change how they're requiring impact fees to be accounted for, really in their own separate fund. And so really going forward when you're budgeting and things like that, you need to be budgeting for how much money you think you're going to get for impact fees and how much you're going to spend of that impact fee money, kind of its own separate fund. That's a new state requirement, so just kind of a heads up and a recommendation on that front. Otherwise, we did look at in the examination report, which has all the investment statutes in it. Didn't have any comments there, and we also have the management's response in the statements as well, and that's on page 59. That was a lot, but does anybody have any questions so far?
Just on the report of internal control compliance, the three comments, repeated comments from the prior year, were those recommendations, tasks? Was it something we were supposed to do, or I'm not?
So they're definitely findings. So yeah, they're definitely ones where we want to remediate those and figure out if we can find a solution to them.
So we found them.
And I think Debbie probably could speak a little more specifics about what's happening as we speak right now. But I think we were working through like what we could actually do to kind of fix those and that sorts of things and the internal control processes.
One of them most likely will never go away. It's the small staff and duplicated tasks.
That could be the case. That is common in smaller cities. I think that specifically with Surrey News, it was the journal entries and then some issues in the payroll system, just making sure that whoever's changing the pay rates is not also kind of doing some other stuff in the finance system, so we don't have a kind of a double up there.
We have corrected those. We have separation between what Mary does and what Tammy does. So we have corrected those two going forward.
And just, I just want to get a comment. We do have a formal internal control policy that we created and we're fine tuning it, so that's to adjust these. And we have made changes with electronic approvals and stuff. So there's more eyes on stuff and there's more management approval on stuff as it goes through the process.
But they're never happy.
All right, so we can probably go on to the next slide. So yeah, this is just a snapshot of the general fund as of September 30th, 2021. So again, obviously old information, but still we like to present this slide to kind of show you where things stood at that time. So you can see at the kind of very bottom, the overall fund balance kind of going up for each year. And we do have different buckets that we kind of put things in according to accounting principles. So the idea here is non-spendables, like you can't literally spend the money, it's already been spent, maybe it's prepaid or something of that nature, and all the way down to unassigned, which is kind of free to spend however the city desires, so to speak. Restricted is usually from outside sources, right? So that's going to be some other outside statute or something like that has already said you can only spend the money in a certain way. And committed is kind of your formal, like maybe a resolution or something like that. So just going to give you an idea of how the fund balance is. So if you go to the next slide. All right, so this slide takes those fund balances and kind of puts them into a little bit of perspective according to expenditures. So you see that the fund balance was about 7.1 million as of 9/30/21, and then expenses for that year, including transfers out, were about 4.3. So obviously fund balance is quite a bit higher than our expenditures. However, that's a little misleading because, with things with the disaster and how things are kind of going in that route, the thing to take away from this is the Government Finance Officers Association, the GFOA, they recommend a minimum of 16.7% fund balance kind of be carried forward as a portion of expenditures. Really, if you're in a coastal area like this, it probably needs to be closer to 35 or 40%. So that's kind of one thing there. We're at 163%, so we are above it, but there's kind of that asterisk down below that kind of excludes any. This is obviously a snapshot of just the general fund without considering the overall kind of disaster recovery fund or any future expenditures that may be required with regard to disaster recovery fund or anything like that. So we can go to the next slide. And so this is just, again, like a snapshot of that disaster recovery fund, and this fund balance kind of changes and it will change over time. So right now it actually has a positive fund balance. Last year it had a deficit, and that's really just a timing difference between when expenditures are kind of going to go out, which my assumption would be in 9/30/22, if we were to, once we do that audit, you're probably going to see probably that number decrease quite a bit. And so that's just really a timing difference of when FEMA comes in to when we start spending money on some of those things, et cetera, kind of in that fashion. So nothing really to hone on too much on this point, just to say that until the full recovery is over, maybe however many years from this, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's a lot more than that, right? But until the disaster is over and we've kind of fully closed out the disaster recovery fund, we won't truly know the impact to the general fund at that point, whether it's the general fund has to kind of kick in money to close out the disaster recovery or if it's the opposite. So that's a little bit of an unknown. So. All right, so this is just a snapshot of your three, what we call proprietary funds. So it's your water, sewer, and sanitation fund. So nothing to be too concerned with here. There are some deficits. A lot of that's with the proprietary funds, a lot of that money comes from grants in a lot of instances and things like that. So a lot of it's kind of a difference between appreciation and things like that. But what I really look for here when I look at kind of cities and governments across the state of Florida is kind of I look for trends more than anything. So you can see kind of on the sanitation at the bottom, it was a larger deficit in 2019 than 2020, and then it kind of went down again. So it's kind of hopping back and forth. So that kind of tells me that we're not vastly increasing the deficit or anything like that in those funds. And so nothing, so from the way I look at these, nothing stands out to me here that I would think be concerned with. If there were, large deficits or anything like that that kind of keep growing and, magnanimously, that's probably one you'd have to start looking at. Is it being funded properly? Are the rates correct? You start asking those kinds of questions. But I think for right now, as far as I'm concerned, I think we're not at that point. So.
And it's not negative cash, it's got appreciation and everything in it.
Yeah, you're correct. So this is including all fixed assets and all these kinds of things. So this is not the cash balances. That's correct. The last slide here is on what we call our governmental activities. So we already showed you the general fund and the disaster recovery fund. So this is those same funds, but looking at it on a full accrual basis. So all your fixed assets would be included here, and any pension liabilities and things of that nature. So obviously it does go up, and it's going to kind of ebb and flow as the recovery happens. But we just like to include this to kind of show you where the overall kind of city is kind of landing as far as that. You can see a lot of it's tied up in restricted and capital assets is what you'd expect. So other than that, does anybody have any questions for the audit for fiscal year 21?
Anybody? No, Ben, looks like. Thank you for coming over.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Ben.
Debbie, anything to add for that?
No, just one more down by the bed.
All right. All right. Let's see, number 3.
All right, Mr. Mayor, the next item on the agenda is a development order for cottages at Paradise Cove. We got Carly Hanson here to present related to the development order.
Okay, good morning, Carly. Just for the record, this is part of the public hearing. Okay, go right ahead.
Yes, this is a development order for site work to start at the cottages at Paradise Cove. This project came before you back in 2020 and 2022 and was unanimously approved that second time with the following stipulations that the developer agreed to. That includes milling and replacing Paradise Cove Boulevard, adhering to the floodplain report, and limiting houses on Paradise Cove Boulevard to 2,000 square feet of gross floor area. Just a recap, this is a new residential subdivision located on 15th Street with 25 single-family lots and 12 multifamily units. The total property is sitting at about 6 acres, but the project site is only 5. And we have David here if y'all have any questions for him. But the planning engineer and floodplain reports recommend approval.
And one question, it wasn't on your report, but David, they said one of your reports was they're gonna put a foot of fill and a 14-foot,
Minimum finished floor elevation.
finished floor elevation. So those will be stem wall houses or stilted houses?
Depends how he wants to develop the building.
You can do it either way.
Yeah, you can do it either way, yeah.
Okay. That's undecided. It's just that that's the elevation, finished floor elevation. Question for Carla? Anyone? Anyone else? Yeah, this is a public hearing, so you're welcome to comment on any of the.
Just looking at the plans, like you said, everything hasn't been developed yet, but the way they changed it and made it like you guys requested, you put the houses facing the other ones that are there. So that street that's there right now is going to access them homes. So the development has its own street for accessing the other things. When that street that's there right now, servicing part of that community, wears out and you got to repave it and everything else, is the homeowners association going to like 50-50 to maintain that street since they're going to have houses along that? I'm just curious. I mean, is that something?
It'll be a city street.
So that'll just be a city street?
HOA won't have anything to do with the street.
Okay.
Once they repave it.
Okay, even though their houses, several of the houses are on using that street, it's going to be a city.
It'll be a city street, and just like the Jasmine Drive will be a city street.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
You got it. Question? Yeah, Bill, come forward, please.
one of the stipulations was the houses.
Need you for the record, Bill.
Bill Hamilton, Highway 98. One of the stipulations was the houses be 2,000 square feet, that minimum or maximum?
It's a minimum. Minimum, it's a match the houses across the street.
Should be stipulated.
These are confusion. They are a minimum of 2,000 square feet to match the houses across the street on Paradise Cove.
That's correct.
That's the only ones we're discussing at that size range.
That's right.
The ones on
On those 6 lots.
Yes, sir. Those 6 lots, yes, sir.
Anyone else? Any other comments for the hearing? Yes, ma'am.
It's okay, Miss Sandra, you want to go? Oh, sorry. My name's Pam Chapman, 108 Paradise Cove Boulevard. Just time frame. Do we have anything forthcoming regarding the time frame? Is there phase 1, phase 2? We'd just like to find out, since this is a development order, how that proceeds. I don't know and was wondering if we could find out.
Go ahead, Doug, you can answer.
David might be best suited for that time frame with his developer.
Okay.
Simple answer, I don't know. I've discussed it with him, and he's pricing it right now as far as, getting pricing from contractors and stuff.
I can't hear you. What?
He's pricing it right now.
Okay.
Getting from contractors. Most likely he'll definitely do the interior, the smaller cottages, now, and then on the 6 lots, he'll decide what he wants to do with them. But most likely he'll end up doing all the clearing at one time now, and then have the lot sit until the market dictates when he's gonna build.
Okay, so it's gonna be developer built?
Yes.
He's not selling the lots, he's
Not
developing.
that I'm aware of. I mean, obviously I don't know if there's a restriction to hold him to that, but.
Yeah, Mayor, I had that same question on the 6 lots, because I heard little birdies talk about the 6 in the front, and the small ones in the back, developing them right away, and then you just pretty much confirmed that they're not gonna build the 6 in the front right away. I have the same concern the mayor has. Is he gonna put these things up for sale? And I think we need an answer to that.
I don't think it matters.
Well, it might matter, because you might have something different than what he's telling us, 2,000 square foot.
No, that's in the plat.
That's a
Minimum
deed
square
restriction,
foot,
yeah.
2,000
So that's part of the plat.
Whoever builds it's gotta do a minimum 2,000 square foot gross floor area.
Well, my concern initially was if he is the builder and the developer, which is not always the case, if he's not gonna sell them, and he's gonna develop them, that doesn't mean that later on he can't sell them. It's not developed. He doesn't have to be the developer.
All the restrictions fall in place as far as heights and everything else, no?
That follows the plat.
They'll run with the land. But that restriction of 2,000 is recorded in the.
Yeah, it'll be recorded on the plat.
Yeah.
I believe it's note 2 on the plat.
I got one concern.
Yes.
And I've been studying in the sidewalks.
Okay.
And I went over yesterday and looked, and, well, there's more than one. That's the sidewalk that comes out of Jasmine and comes around the backside, it dumps into the road. And I reckon it hit me yesterday, the market, most of these people's gonna come out of this subdivision and go, and my concern would be, why we don't have a sidewalk up the side of the road to the other sidewalk, because you jumping people into the road, walking the road, and you're gonna have these people that live already there, and whatever we're gonna do with the 6 lots across the street, I think we need a sidewalk to keep the people out of the road.
Well, that little section of sidewalk is I guess sidewalk could be a 2-way path, but that is intended for those 6 lots to make it onto the pool house. So they don't have to walk up to 15th Street and back down Jasmine Drive.
But you see my point, you going in.
Right, but there's sidewalks on both sides of Jasmine Drive up to 15th Street and sidewalk on 15th Street. So I don't see if anyone who lives on the interior, I mean, it'd be easy enough for them just to walk up Jasmine Drive and walk down the sidewalk on 15th Street. I suppose they could walk on that little path and then get on Paradise Cove.
That's not a sidewalk that you got here.
That is a sidewalk.
So,
It is a
you
sidewalk.
said it's a sidewalk, but just, if you go there and look, and you park there in the cul-de-sac, and you look and you see the market, I don't think people are gonna go up and hit 15th Street, walk down 15th Street, go to the market. They're gonna come out and around this sidewalk, go up Paradise Cove, and go to the market, or to the, I hate to say liquor store, but to the market. I am recommending a sidewalk be put.
On the Paradise Cove side.
Yeah. Yes, on the Paradise Cove side road to keep the people, 'cause if we think about it, the way we got it developed, we run a sidewalk walk goes into the road.
Well, again, the sidewalk was intended for the Six Flags to access the interior. There's a couple of things with the sidewalk on Paradise Cove. One, the way the drainage is laid out, because that whole, between the edge of the pavement and the right-of-way is a swell. And then that's how that whole road drainage collection system takes into play. That's how it collects all the water. So
No, it's not. It's got drainage in there.
yeah, but there's a swell from the edge of pavement to the back of the right-of-way. There's a swell that the water runs down the swell into the inlets, and then there's a pipe that runs through there. So there's really no room for a sidewalk to fit unless you reconstruct that whole drainage system right there.
I know what you're saying, but after yesterday, when I looked at it, I'm just concerned with us, and I have nothing wrong with the development on that. But yesterday it hit me, why would we have a sidewalk go into a road? Why can't we have a sidewalk that goes to the other sidewalk to keep people out of the road? That's when we have sidewalks.
Didn't the city initially ask for that little Jasmine passway in the back?
Yeah, well, whenever the site plan was originally developed in 2019, 2020, I think there was a request to have that little piece of sidewalk so those lots on Paradise Cove could get into the development.
I see the point. That was my initial point until yesterday. And when I see all these people coming out and going to a market, they're not gonna go down Jasmine. They're gonna come here, they're gonna walk, ride bicycles, they go into the store, and that's the way they're gonna come out, is on that road with no sidewalk. I just believe it's gonna be a congested place to me. I could be wrong. I wish we could, without holding him down, because I know him, just see if we couldn't get a sidewalk put from the end of Paradise Cove to the sidewalk at 15th Street.
Is that something the developer would consider, David?
I mean, you'd have to redo that whole drainage on that side, on that road over there. I mean, the site plan was approved last year, and they had specific conditions on the site plan approval, which was met, and, you know, that didn't come up last year, so I don't know what to tell you.
Would you consider contributing to the sidewalk fund that we've established for future sidewalks?
I
should
can't
become a
speak
problem?
for them. I mean,
All right, anyone else?
And everything else, I like the parking in the back, and I reckon the drainage won't have, it'll be sloped, let the water run. I mean, sometimes that's a lot of water that comes off side of 15th Street, you know, that way, so I reckon the right people have looked at it, but this is the only thing I've seen that I would like to see what he would do.
Okay, does there, anyone else have any comments about the sidewalk? I mean, there's a concave swell.
That's good, it's just swell, yeah. I mean, but if you put a sidewalk in, I mean, it's a 5-foot sidewalk, so it's definitely gonna be in the limits of the swell itself. So you would impact the ability for that swell to drain.
That's my only comment.
Are you worried about everybody getting to the market or just those 6 houses?
Just think about parking in that cul-de-sac.
Mm-hmm.
And you lived on either side, it's a new development, look, and you was in 18 over here, and you want to go to the market on your bicycle.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you go? You'd come down, come around, come out of Paradise Cove and shoot right that way in the road. So really, truly, to me, I just don't see just a sidewalk, people walking, just think about people walking.
When you go to the other side of the Paradise Cove,
They don't
the
have a
houses
sidewalk.
that are on that side, they have no,
They
their
don't have
driveways go right to the street.
Right, there's no sidewalk over there. But
So
all
you're
roads-
showing driveways in these for these drawings, do they go right to the street?
They go to the, yes, sir, they touch on it.
People live on Paradise Cove now, what do you do? You
We
go
walk
to
into
market.
the street, we were told that there would be a sidewalk put on the other side. That's why the street lights were replaced and the street lights were put on the new development side. We are as we are. We do not need a sidewalk. We were told that the developers would be putting a sidewalk on the new development side.
Thank you.
I don't recall ever discussing.
No, I don't.
That's never.
We all did.
Excuse me? Ma'am?
No, that's, we all did as a community. I apologize, everyone's not here. But that's why the streetlights were put on the development side. We were told there was a sidewalk gonna be there on the development side. This is a new,
I moved them.
Okay.
change of plan as what we were told as a community. We got together and were told that.
Okay, thank you.
Was that based off of this development? Because that was never an option on this development.
We did move the
This is
streetlights
one of
last
those
year
first.
after we had that issue with them. The underground power was on the other side of the street already, so that's why they all
That's all.
got replaced to that side of the street. There was nothing additional for that.
Okay, any other questions for Dave?
I mean, we got two sides, sidewalk on both sides of the Jasmine Drive for anyone that wants to access 15th Street. I guess there's always a what if, you know, what if somebody wants to do this or that, or.
Right, I understand. All right, are there other comments from the floor? From here? Yes? David, you're good, thank you.
Lisa Logan, Maryland. Is David the engineer for the development? For the developer?
I am.
And you're the engineer for the city at the same time?
Yeah, this started years ago with another engineer that we had working for us.
I mean, we had Kingfish Engineering that reviewed it.
Oh,
as
yeah,
well.
we didn't review it, sorry. Yeah. It was reviewed by a third-party engineer.
Correct.
Anyone else? Any other comments for the public hearing? All right, we'll close the public hearing and move to the table for additional comments or discussion and or motion. We'll say on the sidewalk, many of our interior streets, all of our interior streets, when you have drainage, you'll notice that there's, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but when you have drainage issues, you won't find sidewalks in our interior streets and walk in the road, and ride bicycles in the road for drainage purposes, more so than, so. All right, others, comments or motion?
One of my main concerns back at the start in them allowing the Paradise Cove to mimic across the street, so they would stay in the same. So they did that after a good period of time. I make a motion to approve the plans.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further comments? Call the roll, please.
Mayor Kathy,
Yes.
Mr. Smith,
No.
Mr. Pollak,
Yes.
Mr. Wolf,
Yes.
Mr. Welly.
Yes.
Okay. All right, resolution 2303.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We have a recommendation for a disposition of a vehicle. I've got Tommy Davis here for the city to discuss this truck that we have up for auction.
Good morning, council, mayor. Y'all probably familiar, we have the old black Tahoe that was kind of handed down from the police department, the police department garage. The Tahoe's in really bad shape. We had Troy tried to fix it and could never get it to run right, so we took it over to Bill Kramer Chevrolet. They did a test on it to see what all, it come back with about 2 pages of codes on it, and they recommended that it would probably cost somewhere between $2,000 and $5,000 to even get it back where it would run halfway decent. I told Doug that technically the SUV doesn't fit into the city as far as public works or the utility department, either one, and we really have no use for it. So I recommended Doug that we just, get rid of it. I think that we would be better served to take the money from it and maybe try to get something else, a different kind of vehicle or whatever. But that's my recommendation.
So you just want, the purpose of this is to declare it surplus?
Yes, sir. To send it to auction, yes, sir.
All right. Thank you, Tommy.
Yes, sir.
It lived a good life. I think we got it for $5,000 years ago.
Yeah, I don't.
That was,
2008.
deputy sheriff, the one that does the IT.
Okay. One of those old good deals.
Baxter, what was his name?
Foster. Yeah, that's right. You're right. Forgot about that. Okay, do we have a motion to read resolution 2303 by title only?
I'll make a motion to read resolution 23-03.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Please read.
Resolution 23-03, a resolution of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, declaring certain property surplus, authorizing its sale or disposal, and revising master audit list to remove those items and other obsolete items and providing for an immediate effective date.
All right, before we vote, is there any comments or anybody, our citizens have any for the hearing? Nope. All right, we'll close the public hearing. Is there any discussion concerning the resolution?
Goodbye.
Motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2303.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Kathy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Pollak?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Welly?
Yes.
All right. Number 5 is ordinance 807.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. This is a general fund budget amendment for fiscal year 23 for the first reading. I do have a paper to pass out prior to moving forward. Just as a little more, as some detail for my recommendations related to this ordinance.
All right, let's make any of your discussion part of the public hearing.
Yes, sir, I'm ready. All right, so the ordinance simply is doing a mid-year budget amendment. We've received some funds that we need to put into our coffers so that we can identify them on what roles they're going to play for the city. So the first one to discuss is the building permits. We're adding an additional $75,000 worth of expected revenue. Currently in the budget, we only budgeted to receive $120,000. Much more has come in due to some development review for floodplain and other things. This helps offset our cost. We took in local grants, which you're aware of. We brought to council for $10,000 and $6,100 respectively. Both of those are for parks and recreation improvements. We've got additional code enforcement fines from some houses that have been demolitioned here recently. There's $7,500 liens on those. We only budgeted for $3,750. Now we're adding an additional $7,500 to that number because we expect we've actually received more money from one on 35th Street that was just demolished. The next one is interest. As you remember, I brought to you last time about how we've adjusted our money markets. The mayor and I met with Centennial Bank to discuss the money market accounts and the fact that we were only getting 0.5% and we could be getting 3.2%. That significantly impacted our budget because in the past, we only budgeted for $750 annually for interest because we just had never made money off our money. This year, I'm requesting to up that to $150,000. For example, in the month of December, we took in $3,200 worth of interest because we switched mid-month. In January, I took in almost $18,000 from the city. So we have to recognize those funds ahead of time. We're not having a shortfall in that department whatsoever, any of those listed. We are actually increasing that because we expect that revenue to come forward. So as a mid-year adjustment, that's my recommendation. The next one is the donations. This year, the public graciously donated money to the city employees for the holiday banquet as well as a bonus. So the city taxpayers did not have to pay any money out for our city employees to get a bonus this year. The employees were extremely grateful and thankful for the business owners for their donations, so we're recognizing that $8,700. We had budgeted $0. The last one's the big one. So $415,000. You guys approved a $475,000 grant for FDOT for the beach. Going down for the beach, FDOT gave us a grant for $475,000. RCI was contracted to do the work. They did the work. The city paid for it sometime during fiscal year 2021 before I got here, and subsequently did not get reimbursement from FDOT. So working with David from Dewberry and some of the money that we had expended going through the process, we requested FDOT to return that money to us. That money was paid out of our general fund coffers out of that prior fiscal year. So going through the process, Julie, thank you for your help, helped recover those funds with them. And they could have been lost had we not decided to go back after those. I think a lot of people maybe thought we already got it or hadn't paid it yet. Whichever it was, we did receive it, and we have that now in our budget. So that money is being added to our budget. My recommendation for that, as you can see on here, is to put that in the budgeted reserves. And then it'll drop to the bottom line after the fiscal year if we have a need for it. So overall, the total increase to the budget is $673,000. Just to reiterate, the city has not had a shortfall. We're not overspending throughout the first 6 months of our budget. We've taken in additional money that we have to recognize and earmark for where we need to spend it. So, just like last year.
Very good.
Staff makes recommendation for approval, and Debbie's on the line if you have any questions for her specifically regarding those accounts.
Okay, is there a motion to read ordinance 807?
So moved. I'll make the motion to read ordinance 807.
Second.
Have a motion and a second, please read.
Ordinance 807, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Mexico Beach, Florida, authorizing the amendment for the appropriation of funds and general fund providing an effective date.
Are there any comments, questions?
Yes, we can't hear her.
Can't hear what?
Her. What she just
You
said.
can't hear, her name is Tammy, she's our clerk.
Pam?
Tammy.
Pam, oh, okay.
Okay. We'll speak up.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Just a real quick question. When you went back to the finances, they brought up you don't have a disaster relief fund. Is there a reason, to take this money, instead of putting it in the general fund, stick it in the disaster relief fund so we start building money up there since we don't have one and we're supposed to have one?
I can answer that question if you want, Mayor.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the disaster relief fund is specifically for
Debbie,
FEMA.
Debbie, you're difficult, you're cracking up here.
Oh, is this better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay. The disaster relief fund is specifically for FEMA funds that pass through. These are not FEMA funds. These were DOT funds, and so they were paid out of general fund monies.
So we should have created a disaster recovery fund back in 2019, 18.
Yes.
Got it.
Right.
So it's not an ongoing, it's just after disaster.
Right. It'll be fixed in the next year's budget, but it won't be, we can't go backwards and fix it, so.
I missed that back in 2018.
Thank you, Debbie. Any other questions concerning ordinance 807? Again, first reading. Okay, that'll just move forward then.
Well, I have one,
Yeah.
I'll add something up here. This has been really helpful. So when I first saw the budget amendment come out, I thought, are we adopting a surplus budget? What is this? So thank you for the expense offset, because I was wondering, we're bringing in 670,000, where's it going? So essentially, all of this is a transfer into reserves except $24,000, which is the pickleball improvements, are related to 2 grants and the code enforcement fines. Everything else is transferring into reserve. Well, and the donation.
The building permit reserves is within the general fund budget, that we have to maintain those funds separately for the building to cover the costs of our vendors. So technically, that's the different, it's going into the general, Debbie, that goes into the general budget. If we need to spend that, we have 3 years to spend those monies as they come in.
It's under the general funds umbrella, yes.
So we're not increasing our budgeted expenses. We are just passing through money that was not expected.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
You're showing 673.
Got it. I was stressed when I first read it because it didn't say the expenses. So, thank you.
Okay, number, any other, before we move? Number 6 is boat slip policy.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. We have our, what is it, Harbor Chief, Sandy Walker.
All right, and let the record show this is part of a public hearing.
Morning, Council. So if you remember, we were approached a while back by a gentleman who wanted to put a boat slip in slip 50. And this started a whole conversation about the possibility of other people wanting to do it. So you then asked us to go ahead and make up a policy that would lay out how it needed to be done should anybody else want to come and do it. And this is the policy that we've basically drawn up that lists everything that needs to be done by the person applying. There's also an application form, which I have here if you want to see a copy of that, so that we know exactly what is happening before you agree to anything. That's just a quick copy of the application form, just so you have a copy of it. But the idea is that this is the policy that would enable anybody else that would like to put a boat slip in a city slip, paid for by themselves. They can recuperate the cost over 5 years, and then the slip remains there even after they leave. But from the moment they put that slip in, the slip is the property of the cities. So the moment they spend the $20,000 to put that slip in, that slip becomes the property of the cities. They have to maintain it throughout the time of their lease. When they return it to the city, it has to be returned in perfect working order. And we will then be able to rent it from them on. Once they've recouped their costs over those 4 to 5 years, after that they will pay full market value for the rental of that slip.
And just remember, each one of these lift additions that goes to the city slips will be brought to council for approval to make sure that it's in consistence with the policy. The policy allows us to take in the application in a set way, not Doug doesn't do this way and Sandy does it this way. It's a formal policy, and agenda items will be brought back to you, just as we did for Mr. Seymour for the one lift that we have installed, and the contract starts effective March 1st.
Okay, well, that's what we asked you to do. Thank you.
And the cost is split over 5 years deducted from the rent.
4 to 5 years, depending on the size of their boat, and depending on how much it's going to cost them, how much they can recoup in a year.
So they produce that invoice for what they paid, and we track it. Got it.
And there will always be, we will always work it out in such a way there will always be enough money coming to the city every year to cover our costs in the way of electricity and water and so on and so forth, and maintenance thereof, of the surrounding area. So we will not be at a loss even over those 4 to 5 years.
Okay, questions? Thank you, Sandy. Is there anyone?
Can I have a real quick question for you? Where it has the fee to be calculated, you said spread over so many years. Is this lift paid for up front? That the guy couldn't walk away after a year and the city's stuck with paying for the rest of it? No, because the moment he puts that slip in our property, it becomes our property, but he's paid for it. He does not have to pay for it up front. There is no way that if they leave early, there's no way the city has to recoup that cost.
because it's already ours.
Guaranteed
Okay, that is part of the agreement.
The answer to the question is yes, they have to pay
Has
for
to
the
pay
full
for it.
before
Pay
they
for
put
it
it
full.
in.
Okay, done and done. Good deal.
Will the lift and cover be included in the same
Pardon, sir?
lift and a cover?
At the moment, we've not asked them to put covers on because of the issue with joining different covers to different covers. We've not specifically stuck them to one lift type. And there are, obviously, you can have canvas covers, you can have metal covers and so on and so forth. They don't all join up together neatly. So at some point, that is something that we would have to think about down the road. But we haven't stipulated covers, and it's not included in that initial price.
Okay, others, comments? Thank you, Sandy. All right, we'll close the public hearings. Any further discussion?
How many do we have that you've got?
Well, we have Mr. Seymour's, which you all agreed on day one, obviously subsequent to lease agreements and everything else that have been signed and made up by our legal team. There are 3 or 4 other people that are asking questions at the moment. One gentleman who's on hold because he's looking to buy a property that actually has a slip, but they're all in the holding position. So there's 3 or 4, but maybe 2 to 3 of those are possibly realized at the moment. And we've kind of held it back again during the original discussion to no more than 5 in 1 year, with the idea that we can control it and not over lease them, just so that we don't end up in a big rush and we have no.
If you get more 5 in a year, you bring it to us in.
Exactly, yeah. Well, we're going to bring each one to you.
Yes, sir.
But it's really more a case of we don't want to obviously stop those that are going to be here for short terms, and so on and so forth from having someone park their boats as well. So it's a delicate
Let's
balance.
see how it works out.
Yep.
Is there a motion to approve or further discussion?
I make a motion we approve the boat slip policy.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion? Call the roll.
Mayor Kathy?
Yes.
Mr. Smith?
Yes.
Mr. Pollak?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
Mr. Welly?
Yes.
Have to yell at me.
Good job. Okay. Here we go. Staff reports. City Administrator, you're up.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor. Thank you guys for your consideration for all these items today. I know it was a lengthy meeting, but we are moving forward with many things related to financial stability as well as our overall government. So job well done by each of you folks this morning and in the future. Just a couple quick announcements. First of all, I'd like to give a round of applause for Tommy Davis. He has been in the retirement system for FRS for 30 years, including the state. He has 17 years with the City of Mexico Beach and 13 years with the state of Florida from the Park Service. So he's reached an opportunity where he has to go into the DROP program. So the Deferred Retirement Option Plan is a 5-year plan, so it's definite. So as of March 1st, he goes into the DROP plan. He has 5 years, but he could have 2 bad days in a row, I guess, and leave any time. He officially retires as of March 1st. So congratulations to you, Tommy, and thank you for all your service. The next item is March 17th. We have St. Patty's Day shenanigans, food trucks, music, possible, we got some green beer I hear about from 6 to 8 at Parkman Park. It's a Friday night. I hope to see everybody there. The next item after that, city event, would be April 8th. It's an Easter extravaganza at Under the Palms Park. It's going to be from 10 to 12 a.m. on April the 8th. We're going to have bounce houses, food, games, and the Easter Bunny. If Jerry's been a good guy this year, he'll come by your neighborhood over there and see you. Yeah. So that'll be fun for Easter for all the kids. It was a great turnout last year, so this is the second one of those. Also, I'd like to congratulate the Special Events Committee, as well as the City of Mexico Beach, on an amazing turnout for the Gumbo Festival that other day. Yeah, it was so nice to see. It was a little hectic with some traffic, and we're working on some solutions going forward, but what a great day had by all, and so many great winners. And obviously, Mr. Smith's wife can cook some gumbo. I think she got second over there. But it was what a great day to see Mexico Beach. I even got some comments at the city county manager meeting in Bay County last week that said, "What in the heck was going on in Mexico Beach?" They tried to drive through. It was just it's just a feel good moment. So congratulations to the Special Events Committee and their hard work. And that's all I have today, sir.
Okay. Mr. Attorney?
Nothing specific.
Nothing. That's good when you're quiet, I like it. All right, Rich, you got anything?
Yeah, I do, Mayor. I just want to confirm how we kind of handle stuff. And I mean, I'm not new to this, but it just seems like every time we have a citizen come up and make a comment or whatever, I understand from the table, we don't need to answer any questions or anything else like that. I got that. But there are, Alex brought up Old Grove, Rock brought up tarps, and I believe he's brought it up before, and the plywood, and then George Gill brought up the 2 meetings. How do we get back to these guys? Does it come up again in the next meeting, or do we answer them in a letter? Do we try to prove to, I mean, do we have a process for that?
Well, for me, we have a code officer. I think all of those, some of the things that are brought up doesn't necessarily mean they're a violation.
No,
They
I'm
may
just-
not look right, but that doesn't mean they're a violation according to our rule. But we do, if I'm following you right, we do proceed or process these code violations through a, I don't know if the blue tarp is a code violation home, I don't know that. I don't think we get back to them specifically.
I'm trying, that's what I'm trying to get to is, what is the process? What are we gonna do? Because there's a possibility, let's say a guy named Rock may come 2 months from now and bring up the same thing.
If I could just add, sir, generally, I take a note for each one of those comments, and then I do the opportunity to follow up with them. I make sure they rode around with Rock and had him point out some of the ones that he's seen. So I try to field those for you, and should it be something that needs to come back, that's when it would get to an agenda item. But like the Casa del the Grove, the old Grove, I've actually met with the owners, and so I try to field some of those so that you don't have to, but you're welcome to help me any way you guys need to do that.
I'm just asking a question, how it gets answered. And if it's that the city administrator is addressing each one with the individual, I guess that's good for me.
I don't know if we're doing that. Addressing back to the person that asked the question.
Correct. Yes.
I don't know, I'm not saying we aren't, I don't know that we are.
I try my very best to follow up with each one of them should they come up and make complaints. Something about meeting times, I have no control over that. You guys have handled that. But blue tarps, and I follow up any specifics they have, kind of like he talked about the one on Fortner, I believe, that had all the junk and the trees and the Conex boxes, and we took care of that one. So we find it, one code officer and myself, we find it hard to see everything, so I do take that advice when somebody makes a statement and go after that as well. But the blue tarps and windows, if it's a nuisance, I'll have to find out more from that on him.
But at the same time, if a council person feels strong about what's been brought up, they can bring it up on the agenda item at the next meeting, or research it or whatever. Such as the meeting time, I've already been researching that with the League of Cities. I just hadn't got enough input from them to bring it up yet.
Good? You good?
Yes, sir.
Good. Bobby, you got anything?
I'm good.
You okay?
I just want, he emphasized the gumbo, it was something, and them people that was over, they did an outstanding job. I mean, everywhere you went, it was nice to be, it was proud to be from Mexico Beach, that's sad. Good turnout, a lot of people, everybody, I don't even know if we had any glitches. Parking is a good thing. I mean, we didn't have enough places to park, so that's good for us. Now, what we're gonna do about it, I hope you're working on that ordeal.
Sure.
That's why I didn't bring it up, because that was one of the things, and I think our lieutenant back there said he was gonna help us do something, so, I'm proud of him.
You got it, Dad?
Oh, my goodness.
We'll help you out next year, gonna keep you away from the judges. Extra security.
You didn't have to.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Wood.
He took,
It
he took,
it was good. I really think it was a big turnout, and, a little town's coming together. It takes a little bit, but we're gonna make it.
all right, Adrian, good. Motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you everyone for coming.